Hi, I'm Brian. I went out and took some macro photos a few days ago. Early morning, there was some frost on the ground, and I love when there's frost, and I love the ice crystals that form. If you have a macro lens like this 60mm macro, it's an older lens, but it goes down to 1:1. But unfortunately, I didn't have time to throw the flash on. It was early morning, and I rushed out. And so the pictures I came back with were a little underwhelming. Through the power of editing, I was able to take a few pictures from this to what we see here. So join me and I'm going to show you the editing process of how I take these underwhelming macro photos and make them look awesome. And it's very easy. You can use Lightroom and the power of AI and end up with these beautiful macro shots just like I did here, even if you're not using a flash. So let's dive into Lightroom. So you can see I have a couple photos here that I've already kind of selected for my morning out there. Look at the details on these ice crystals. It's just amazing. And the light wasn't that great that day. So you can see I had to bump up the ISO. I think I locked it to top out at 4,000 and it went right up to 4,000. In this case, the shutter went down to 1/60th of a second. Look at that noise. It just kind of ruins it for me. I like not a lot of noise in my macro photos, especially in these abstract type of macro photos. Let's see what we can do with this photo here. So first I'm just going to walk you through how I would do my edits here in Lightroom. What I'm about to show in Lightroom is the same as what you would see in Lightroom Classic. I just want to show that we can also use the Topaz Lab filters here in Lightroom. First, I like to do all my basic edits here in Lightroom on the raw image itself. First, I like to just kind of get a baseline of what I saw in camera when I was taking the picture. And so I will just usually select one of these camera profiles here. So I just shoot raw. I like this camera muted. It's just the colors that I saw when I was shooting that morning, how I remember it looked. And yeah, usually what I'll do, just to kind of go through this quick, no matter what I'm doing, is I'll hit this auto button and I'll just see what that does. And sometimes I get lucky and I like what it does. In this case, I don't like what it did. So I'm just gonna undo that with Control Z. And I am going to keep the exposure. I'm going to give it a little bit more contrast though. So I'm going to bring the highlights down. The shadows I'm also actually going to bring down. The central vertical stripe of this picture I like, and I don't mind if I darken the shadows on kind of the left and the right of the image, especially in that background. Also, we're going to crop a little bit, so I'll come down a little bit. And the whites, I hold down the Alt key, just make sure I'm not blowing out too much in the whites, but probably just keep that white about actually where it is. And then the blacks we'll bring down. One quick tip, if you don't know, you can hold this little eyeball here. You can see what it is when it's all zeroed out, and then what it is with our applied settings. So if you want an overall before and after, you do have this button down here. And you can also use the slash key, but I like hitting that. And that blows away everything, including the camera profile. So that is back to just the raw image. So here we are. So all right, I feel like to play with the white balance and just see kind of what it does to the coloring. I think I'll just leave it as shot though for now. And I would usually spend more time in this color mixer and the hue, saturation, and luminance. So I like to click this targeting color mixer. And then as you move around, you can see the different colors over here. So you know what colors you're going to adjust. Very similar panel here, but I do like to also play with just this general mid-tone slider. And then the shadows, kind of see what they do. I do like to bring the shadows down here. I like what that's doing, putting more emphasis on the center region. And so again, kind of before and after, I do like that. I think I will put a little bit of dehaze on it. Yeah, I like what that does. I am not going to touch sharpening in here. I'm not going to touch noise reduction or color noise reduction because we're going to rely on Topaz for that. I want to crop this. So that's about where I want it lined up. I could apply a different aspect ratio, maybe get like a 16:9 crop. But for right now, let's just go with this. So I got that. I'm going to hit enter. By doing that crop, it really does kind of draw your attention quicker to this, what will be very in focus region here of the ice crystals. So let's keep moving. Since we're in Adobe Lightroom and not Adobe Lightroom Classic, I got to say what you have to do is you have to jump to Photoshop and then jump to Topaz Labs. If we were using Lightroom Classic instead, you could just jump right to Topaz Labs. So it's a minor inconvenience, but I don't know, I enjoy working here in just the regular Lightroom or the Lightroom Cloud. What we're going to do is we're going to right-click on our image, and we're going to say Edit in Photoshop. Now again, if you had Lightroom Classic open, you could just say Filters, and then you could jump right to Topaz Labs. Now that we're in here, we are going to come up to the filter menu, and at the bottom of the filter menu, if you've installed the Topaz Labs products, whether it be Gigapixel or Sharpen or Noise AI, you'll see them all here. I just installed Topaz Photo AI. That includes all 5 products in one kind of interface. Might be a little bit slower if you wanted to do only one of those things, but I like to load it and see what kind of options the AI in Topaz Labs thinks it should do here. So already it can tell that there's noise, and it can tell that some stuff needs to be sharpened. These are just the defaults. We are going to tweak this a little bit, but already you can see a huge difference in the noise reduction. I really like the noise reduction. And the sharpening of the ice crystals also is interesting. I don't know if that's exactly what we want it to be. It looks like it got a little bit muddy. So first, let's just look at this remove noise and expand that. And the AI selected normal, and you can see there's normal and strong here. Probably not much difference between these two. We'll just switch it to strong and see if it seems to make much of a difference. It really doesn't, and you don't want to necessarily overdo it. So if normal gives you enough of what you need, it's better to go with that. Don't really need to mess with the strength or the detail. I really like how that creamy background is now. Another cool thing is this Photo AI, when it loads, it does manage to find like the in focus area. So you'll notice it's not exactly the center of the image. It did kind of snap into what is the key focus area here, and knew that's kind of the area we want to focus on. So that's pretty neat, but you can drag the photo around and look at different areas if you want to, and then it'll reapply the settings to that region. And also you'll notice that it was smart enough to know there's no faces to recover, and it doesn't need to use Gigapixel to enhance the resolution. So in Sharpen, it decided to choose standard. This is the one where I think the AI doesn't always necessarily pick the right one. In this case, there is no lens blur and there is no motion blur, so you would think standard would be the best, and it might be. But I do want to try the other options just to see if we can get a little bit better detail on some of these geometric ice crystals here. So let's try lens blur. I think that might actually already be better than what it was giving us with standard, but let's try motion blur. You can also zoom in. I just zoomed in with the mouse wheel. I am loving the way that this is looking now. I mean, to me, that's a pretty incredible level of detail of these tiny, tiny ice crystals on this tiny leaf. One quick thing is we can, change the view here like this. If you want to do a slider and see before and after, that's another way to do it. So anyways, let's click here now. Now it's going to process it, and this is actually processing the whole image. Okay, so we're back here in Photoshop from Topaz Labs. Click the X button up here, and you're going to get this dialog and says save changes to the Photoshop document before quitting. So you want to say yes. When we finish saving and come back to Lightroom, it automatically knows to add it back into Lightroom, and now you can see here's our TIFF file and here's our original RAW file. Right click and say stack or unstack or ungroup them. I ungrouped them just by default, so it's easier to see what was the original and what was the new one. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset all the settings on it. Go to Photo, reset edits. Control R would have also done it. So okay, so now we have our before image and here is our after image. And I'm going to go full screen, F button, and here's our image, unedited in Lightroom with all the noise and the mess in these ice crystals. And now let's take a look at our new one here. I think this is looking beautiful. I love what it's done to this background without the noise. And we'll go full screen again to kind of like let it blow up. And we can see here if we zoom in, yeah, I love the detail. It looks great. This whole image for me just really works. These are the final 5 images with a little bit more crop. These are all TIFF files now. And we'll go full screen. I guess we are full screen. There we go, full screen. So these are what the images look like after I did a little bit of color correction, some of the edits like we saw on this image here, along with a crop, and finally the noise reduction and sharpening from Topaz Labs. This was the pepper from the garden, and did a hard crop in to see the details of these very fine ice crystals on this very tiny pepper, and it almost looks like an ice fern tree is growing in the background. And again, just really nice details there. And this is the frozen rose from the garden, and again, very nice details. Hey, so thank you for joining me. I really hope that you learned something here. I really enjoy creating macro shots, and sometimes when I don't have the flash, it's just really fun to still get out there and take pictures, and that's what it's all about. Just get out and make some great images. And with the power of AI and Lightroom and Topaz Labs, you can have these awesome images just like we produced here today, even if you don't have a flash. So just get out there and keep shooting and check back often. And hey, leave some comments. I would love to know how you approach edits of your macro photos or any photos in general. And let me know what you think of this process that I use. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.